good to go? Fantastic. Yes, it works. Okay, so, buongiorno. Good morning. How are you? Okay, so I see lots of smiling faces behind the mask. So it's actually more smiling eyes. Fantastic. So the sun is also shining again now back in Milan. It's great being back live on stage. So thanks, Daniel, and everybody for inviting. And I said, you know, I'll come only if it's live. You know, this proves one thing, right? That the way we experience and we consume products does affect the benefits that we get from the products, right? From the experience. And the more it is, of course, I mean, experience good, the more this is the case, right? So it's an obvious fact. The way we consume product, so the value in use of a given product does change, right? According to the context. And so, you know, Daniel has done a great job here setting up the context. So I'm sure that the value of my speech, ceteris paribus, right, is going to be higher, despite what I'm going to say, just because of the context, at least to this audience. Now, the audience online, bear with me, okay? It's a simple fact. However, the simple fact is highly disregarded, right, when it comes to discussing value of platforms. Yes, we do talk about design, we do talk about the technology, the market, the governance, and all the beautiful things. However, we miss the single point, which I believe is actually fundamental, that there are different types of value, right? So that value in use, value in context, shaping that customer experience has a great, you know, deal to do with what is value. What kind of value do platforms create? However, you know, also in research, particularly, we tend to consider or conceive of value as if this is in a monolith, right? There is value like an objective, you know, dimension out there so that we can say more, less, right? 1, 0. I don't think this is the case, right? And that's basically what I will focus on. So, as I said, what is new about platforms? Now, you know, there is one aspect that has to do with the systematic connectedness of products, right? That, you know, so products in a way provides, you know, more value just because they connect to each other, and therefore, you know, we can consume them as a bundle, right? And we can keep expanding, right? I mean, so the concept of modularity, so mix and matching, you can take another single product, you match, you know, to what you have already, and you get new combinations. These new combinations gives you new opportunities of value consumption, right? So that, you know, now you have mobile banking, or whatever, you can also drive your Range Rover from the iPhone, at least, you know, to just get out of the garage, right? But the other aspect, right, has to do with the concept of network externalities or network effects, right? That is fundamentally a demand-based concept, right? So that, you know, value expands by, you know, the greater adoptions on the demand side of the platform per se and the products that are provided on the other side, right? So we know the story, and therefore, you know, this is supposed to expand even more, right? As more adoptions happen on both sides of the markets, right? So there is, again, right, I mean, a focus on value, but particularly on value creation, right? So that's sort of the new focus here. That we're not talking anymore solely about products with an inner characteristics and value, right, that are provided, realized in a given market, but we are talking about a totally different architecture, right? So the market is no longer the place where we attribute value to a given product, and we even, you know, consider competition. Now that place is the platform as a system, and that cuts across markets, right? It doesn't sit in a specific market. So we don't assess anymore a given product, say banking, right, in the banking, market niche. Why? Because now we can derive all the benefits from banking related services, right, by connecting to other services, by using with other products and services that are not necessarily in the banking market or sector, right? And so now, of course, the fintech revolution shows this clearly, right, that we can connect to different products, insurance and whatever, or wellness and, healthcare at the different dimensions, right? So it's not longer just about banking in terms of pure financial services. It's all about value. It's about value creation. But again, what is value? There is also recently, right, some focus, and of late this has been particularly important in the debate about value distribution. How is value captured in this new economic structures, right? And whether that value is disproportionately captured by the one that control the architecture, right? So the platform firms with all, the backlash on big tech, right? As the new illness of our modern society. Now, the politically correct thinking, would impose that as academics, we take some normative stance towards these new architectures, right? Towards, how and whether, platforms are a driving force, a positive force, or again, they are the new, tyrants of the society. Now, I don't think this is our job as academics, right? I think that as academics, we are tasked with the job of asking the right questions, finding a beautiful problem. And here's my beautiful problem today. What is value after all? I think that if we don't address this question, we cannot talk or address the other fundamental questions that are related with platforms. Starting with what are platforms and ecosystems? Again, are they pure marketplaces? Are they something, more than that? Are they new structures that are controlled by a particular firm, and so they influence, what people can do or cannot do? And how is this supposed, again, to be beneficial or detrimental to society? It all goes back to the concept of value. We need to anchor this first. We need to decide first, what is value after all? And what kind of value are we talking about? And so as soon as we tackle this question, to me, it becomes clear that we need to move from value to values, plural. It's a multidimensional concept. So there are different types of values, right? And depending on where we focus on, we can get to different, answer to our particular question. So let's go back, to the basic concept of value. What is value? Now, I'm asking you, right? So here is a beautiful question. And as a wine lover, I really like to ask this question to my strategy students in the first class. Now, I'm asking to you, what is the value of this wine? So here you have, 2 bottles of wines. There might be some connoisseurs in the room here, right, that know exactly what these bottles are. There might be people that have never seen these bottles. There might be people who drink wine, people who love wines, people who don't give a beep about wine, right? Now, depending on who you are, I'm sure we're going to have different value attributions to each of this bottle. So let me ask randomly, what do you think is the value of the bottle on the left and the bottle on the right? I give you a hint. They all come from the same region, the same type of wine, and they all come for very well-established vineyard and, brands.
Is the name? give us a value because it's very well known wine by me. The other one,
Il Bruciato, Antinori, more than 600 years history. It dates back to Dante.
for me, the value of wine is a dinner in the France.
Okay. So would you say that you value more the wine depending on the kind of friends you're sharing with it? No. So the bottle remains the same. But, you know, give me a tag, give me a price tag.
From home, they say that the logo is more visible on the first one. And also they say that it also depends on the previous knowledge of the users about wine.
Okay. So what would be your guess in terms of price? Price for the bottle on the left?
It's about 100.
100. Bottle on the right? 50. So you would say basically that the one on the left is double the value, the one to the right. Are we saying this? Okay, so I only have 45 minutes for my speech, so we need to agree. Okay? Then we can go and test the wine, but it's not the time of the day. Yeah. Uh-huh. Such as? The packaging?
Something is expensive, but I don't care. It needs value is zero. And also, for example, if I really want to use some wine now, there's a greater revenue than, for example, if I am really drunk and I.
Okay. So never buy expensive wine when you're drunk, okay? Because anyhow, you're not gonna experience, you know, the benefits of it, right? And then, so it's just wasting your money. So the contest, we got back, you know, to some of this, right? So the contest does matter if you are on a nice, you know, romantic dinner out. You know, gentlemen, please don't buy, you know, cheap wine. I would say even if you're eating alone, don't buy, you know, cheap wine because life is too short. But, you know, how expensive are those, right? So price, of course, is not, as you said, you know, the dimension to judge value, but that's exactly what we do. That's exactly what we do. It's all about price, right? How do we converge on a given value? We use some, you know, indicators. And so we let the market figure out, right? So eventually the market, demand and supply, will figure out, you know, the value of a product depending on a number of dimensions that are value on average on the market, right? Scarcity, et cetera, right? I mean, so there are a bunch of different people experience the product, right? So depending on how they value that, I mean, they're willing to give, right, and to spend some money for it, right? So we think that the price is the right, you know, so-called market-based signaling of the value. That's why we focus so much on making the market work, you know, removing all the inefficiencies in the market, including the information asymmetry, right? Why? Because we want this price signaling mechanism to work at its best. Of course, if you have some inefficiency in the market, you know, this indicator will be distorted somehow, right? There will be some distortions, and therefore you cannot properly attribute value to a product by just, you know, judging from the price. Now, these are taken from a platform, Vivino, right? So the biggest platform on wine, you would say, right? I mean, that has multiple things in place, you know, the marketplace, it's a community, it gives you, you know, information about history. And here you have also the ratings, right? So, I mean, how do platforms, you know, get to, you know, attest the value of a given product and give that information back to consumers? Well, you know, price is one, and then you have the ratings, right? I mean, how, you know, how good basically other people think, that product is. Cool. So, we know this. This is the mechanism. But look at how astonishing, this is when you put one, one by one, right? So side by side. 4.6 average rating, 4.1 for the bruciato. But the price is 438 euros. Okay, so it's 4 times more expensive than what you said. Okay, for the Sassicaia. And about, on average, 21, 22 euros for the bruciato, right, from Antinori. Those are all, Bulgarian, very fine wines. 20 euros, 430. So we're saying that there is a 0.5, if we agree, right, that, what's in there, that the market is right, okay? The market says that there is a 0.5 difference in terms of ratings, right, of judgmental value by customers when tasting that wine, right, that justify a difference of, basically 400 euros. That 0.1, that 0 point something, right, like each, interval there, it's worth lots of money, right? Let's try something different, okay? I don't want you to get drunk. Let's move from one form of art, right, to another form of art. What's this? The little thing in the middle. What's the little thing in the middle there? I mean, we are in Milan. You should recognize this immediately, although this is not, the exhibition is not in Milan, of course. The Mona Lisa, also known as Gioconda, right? Right, so now the Gioconda, right? I mean, you've never seen this picture, I mean, this way, because this dates back to the early century, okay? It's earlier than 1911. And this is how it was exposed, right, at Louvre before something happened, okay? It was just a random piece of art from the Renaissance period. And, it sits with other Renaissance pieces. It's basically what, all museums do, right? There's a shelf there. This is a market for arts, right? Consumption. You go there, there is a shelf, right? And you see the products. And this is it, right? They were just showing the products out there. Now, we know that this is, one of the most acclaimed, if not the most acclaimed piece of art in the world, right? How is it possible? Why is it so valuable? Why people, they run and, they queue just to do this? This is how today is exposed, right? If you go to Louvre today, you're going to see just the Mona Lisa, right? And all people are just queuing there. So the Mona Lisa is responsible for 80%, 80% of visitors at Louvre. One piece of art, okay, so attracts 80% of the visitors. This will be, what we call in platform superstar, the must-have complement. If you have Mona Lisa, you have the market. That's why somebody in the 1911 stolen the Mona Lisa, an Italian, right? In Perugia, Vincenzo Perugia, stolen the Mona Lisa because he said, this is an Italian art. It needs to be exhibited in Italy. So it's not clear whether Leonardo da Vinci or Perugia is the one responsible for the value of this piece of art. Why? Because after that episode, right, everybody was writing about Mona Lisa. They disappear, so experts jump in to say all the marvelous things about this piece of art. So they were essentially educating the world about why this piece, of art was so valuable. What was great about it? So they were describing all single elements, right? And they started some auctions, right? I mean, putting some price tags and rewards for people, that were able to find it, right? So it catch the attention of the world. While before, right, it was just a random piece out there. It was hard to really, direct attentions of visitors to it, right? Only the people that were right, focused and knowledgeable about this would just go and, stop in front of the piece of art, to look at it, right? Why am I saying this? Well, because essentially, what we have today is that platforms, they do kind of these things. This is called, now with the new language coming from Brussels, right? With the regulations that's coming out from platforms, this would be called self-preferencing. If the Louvre was, were basically a platform, and this were a platform marketplace, right? These were complements shown in the marketplace, Louvre could be accused of doing self-preferencing. If you have an exhibition from third party, piece of art, right? You're doing basically just, a preferential treatment of one single piece of art that you own, that is yours, right? And attracts all the attentions of users to that piece of art, right? So people basically don't spend time to go and look at the other exhibition. Or that's what is basically the thinking, right? However, we know now, right, that missing this, lacking this, nobody will know about the Mona Lisa. The Mona Lisa will be just a random piece of art. Do we see now the difference? I don't know what is the answer, how does this, affect value? But I know for sure that there is a difference in value, and particularly in value appreciation. Morning. We're talking about art. Are you in the right room? Good. Okay. So let's go back to food, right? To our wine story, right? We said about, knowledge, experience, right? Attention to the salient elements that, or attributes of a product that make us attributing proper value. Italy is the platform of food. You must know, right? So this is basically the store in Milan here. If you have time later, just go and enjoy some of the fine food there, and have a look at the organizational aspects, so that you say, the multi-sidedness of this store, right? Why is Italy such, a big deal, right? In the grocery or retail, right? Food retail, because it's nothing like a grocery store. Italy is really a platform that's building some ecosystem behind it. It's not selling food. It's selling just some particular type of food. Precisely the kind of products that none of us will know. Because they are small producers, fine, high quality, products of almost artisanal value, right? The question, though, is, how do you make, even Italians, right, spend 4 or 5 times more for pasta? One would say, yeah, but this pasta is coming from Gragnano, etc. Yeah, sure, but the average quality of pasta that we buy here is already good enough for our cooking skills, right? We still destroy the pasta when we cook at home, right? So if we buy 4 times more expensive pasta, right? This is going to show even more how bad we are at cooking, right? Yes, that's why Italy does also some edutainment, right? So we have some chefs, right? You can go there for some cooking classes, and they show you how to treat these products. They show you why it is important when you're making a carbonara to use some particular type of pasta. Because if you don't use that, you will miss, right, on the last minute on how to make the creamy, thing that then makes the carbonara great. Right? Now that you know, your experience is totally different. You will never go back to the average pasta after that classical, you know? Never. Because now you know, and you have experienced those benefits. So you know that there is one way to make carbonara. The rest is just how others make carbonara, right? It would be called basically frittata in Italian. Okay? So this is how they do, right? I mean, lots of selections, curation of value. Value, how it is, you know, thought by the one who is orchestrating this ecosystem, right? So it's just about some specific products, right? And some specific ways. And so what they do, basically, they help, right? And they supported, you know, all those producers, right? To build the right also capabilities and branding, right? I mean, to put their products on the market and realize the value, the potential value that is in those products, okay? Now, if you're lost, you know, at this point, and say, you know, what has, you know, Sassicaia and Mona Lisa to do with platforms? The message is basically in this slide. You know, platforms do not just attain or facilitate exchange of value. They shape greatly what value is. They actually redefine the concept of value in many contexts. You want an example? Take Airbnb. Airbnb has drastically changed how we value accommodations, private and, you know, professional, right? Has redefined the concept of quality. And accordingly, you know, the benefits that we experience of a given product. So that part of design, which I have marked here in red, right, is an important aspect. So platforms are not neutral infrastructures that just, you know, allows basically the, you know, provides the network for others to interact and then, you know, figure out what is the value and then realize that value. Actually, you know, the type of infrastructure that they put in place, how they put in place, right, and how they allow or not or constrain how we perform interactions in that infrastructures, that affects the kind of benefits we obtain from that network, from participating in that network. That's why, you know, we have products that are so different despite doing the same thing. Google, Android, Apple iOS, they do the same thing, but not quite in the same way. Why? Because there is a fundamental difference in the design. And design, if you go back to the Latin, is providing meanings. What architects do when they design our home, they imagine our consumption, our, you know, value in use, how we will or should use one particular structure, one particular architecture, right? So this space, somebody has had, you know, a vision on how it should be used. That's exactly what platforms do as a designer. They are architect of choice. They basically enact upon the technology, the market architectures, and the governance architecture, meaning the selection systems, all the mechanisms, right, that facilitate us to make a choice, ratings, price, promotions, self-preferencing, right? I mean, exposing, driving attention to one particular product, right? As a way to guide our choices and as a way to guide us towards one particular way to experience the product. So that's value in use, which is completely different from exchange value. Why? The assumptions are different. Exchange value is about assuming and presuming that value is an objective monodimensional aspect that stays with the product. The market, you know, the job of the market is just figuring out what that is. But we have seen that is not a monolith. It depends, first of all, of our experience or our knowledge, the context where that is used, but fundamentally, right, it changes with the use, right? So again, if you can use one product with in many other forms, the value keeps expanding. It gives you more opportunities of consumption, right? If you can expand, if you can experience that value integrated with another, right, set of products, okay, that again gives you another types of consumption experience, right? So that's why we have, the integrated type of experience a la Apple versus the scatter, right? Broader variety, but scatter experience a la Google Android. Those are two different views of the world, okay? Now let's see what these, value architectures in actions, right, have to do. Technology architecture. Design matters a lot. A lot. These are two different architectures, right? To the right, you see the Yahoo way of, showing information and enabling people to, exchange value through the information, okay? That would be the kind of, open, let, the market figure out, what are the links and clicks, that are valuable, right? To the left, 4 years later, it's the launch year. So 4 years later, okay? If you have, the idea of winner take all, network effects, you are already in the market, it's hard for anybody to enter and challenge, your value, think twice. This is Google 4 years later, entering with something that is, people will say, it's so simple, how can you provide value? Yeah, it's a different complete vision. It's a different complete design of the tech architecture, right? They went down to very different path, right? I mean, to attain scale in the first place, but, to provide value. So the reasoning behind, that design for Google, it was relevance of the information, right? Behind Yahoo, it was variety of information. Completely two different visions. These two simple elements, variety versus relevance, right? And speed, okay? These two dictates completely different architectures. And we now understand which one became more valuable to us. Why? Perhaps because, we put more weight on the relevance and speed of the information rather than, just variety, okay? We care not just about lots of information, but we care about the information that is relevant for us. When we search for something, we want that thing that is most relevant for us. Cool. Some years later comes Amazon. Amazon is not dealing with information, is shipping products, right? But the tech design, right, the way that Amazon, built the architecture had an input on what you could do on that architecture, right? And so now Amazon is basically challenging Google on the ads side. Why? Because, for those that are particularly focusing on shipping products, right, Amazon is a much more contextual, dedicated infrastructure, right, for providing the information, for grabbing attention. Therefore, if you advertise and put information within that context, right, you already have the relevant audience versus being on just, the generic, searching engine that is Google, that is not just about, physical products or things that you want to buy, right? Let's go on. Market architecture. We always have, this idea, openness, right? You have to open up so that, network effects come out, and that's how you create value. Really? Which value? Again, which value? And for whom? This is, a study showing that, the jailbreak, right? So opening up the platforms to third party that are not certified or screened, right? By Apple, right? Actually lower the incentives to share knowledge and lower the quality of innovation in the platform. As a result, lots of the benefits, right, for being on that were lost for consumers. In another paper, we show something similar in the video games contest, right, where, lots of entry, right, degrade the quality of the games, right? And so overall, this reduce the value in terms of innovations and user experience. So this means that basically, when the focus is on innovation, that value needs to be created in the context because you have to make something specific to the platform. You have another duty as a platform architect to curate that specialization, that linking, okay? Provide the right incentives to people. So this means that basically control points are relevant and are important and are critical to create and shape the ways that the network effects unfold in the market. So network effects is not just something again that is agnostic, okay, about the product's typology. It has to do with what are you selling. If it is information, if it is physical products, if it's apps, if it's innovation. Let me jump, in the interest of time, right? The last dimension, governance. Now we have the idea again, right, that after all, this platform orchestrators, or I like now to call them architects, right? They design all of these architectures unilaterally, meaning that they already have all the visions of where they want to go. They know exactly what kind of value can be attained, and therefore they implement, right, the technology, the market structure, and the governance mechanism or rules, in a way to attain that value. Now, that's part of the story. But the other part of the story is that that's just an input, an initial input. These are animals that evolve. Why? Fundamentally because there is participation of third parties there. External users, providers that challenge this vision constantly by using the platform. Because they hold different perceptions of what value can be in the context. So that's why we have multiple value propositions that comes into place, right? Precisely because, there are developers out there, for instance, right? Providers of contents and things that they hold different visions, different perceptions, and they might not necessarily use the platform as it is intended by the platform architect. Now, when they do this, they're basically challenging the identity, the core identity of a platform, right? So the Apple versus Epic's battle shows this. Apple thinks that value comes from integrations and semi-openness, so that things need to be controlled and reside just within, right? The Apple's App Store. Epic thinks the opposite, that value comes from opening up, right? And then giving the ability to consumers to choose, which marketplaces to buy things. Apple App Stores being just one, right? Those are different ideas about the core identity of the mobile OS, ecosystem. So the governance rules keep changing over time for the necessity from the architect to A, unlock new value opportunities as they start, being signaling in the market, and B, realign the interests and incentives, right, and the participation and actions of participants in the ecosystems to what is the intended core identity that they want to maintain. This identity might evolve in some cases. In other cases, like Apple, for instance, no, it is maintained firmly as it was, right? Now, what does this mean? I don't want to provide, a rosy picture that all of this is great, right? I'm just, again, being agnostic and then, focusing on the beautiful problem, right? What is value? Which value? And then again, if we start addressing these points and these questions, then we can go back to some of the other questions, right? And now understanding, okay, so is this self-preferencing story, right? This preferential treatment of one particular complement or a set of complement detrimental, right? Then we need to start asking, okay, so detrimental for whom? In which ways? How does it affect, values, the different dimensions of value? right? Does it constrain the ability to exchange value? Does it constrain the ability to create value? Does it constrain the ability to experience value in use? We need to address all this set of questions to go back to the first initial question. And more fundamentally, right, we need to go and look at the different type, I mean, the entire architecture of value of the platform to see whether that particular rule, right, that particular governance is in place to provide a specific way to value, to path to values, right? Now, if we take a recent case, and then, you know, I'm done. I just want to close here. So recently, right, I mean, the 2021 ended with, you know, a bombastic news, right? So the Italian authority, right, fined basically Amazon Italy, particularly for one of these practices, right? So it was alleged and accused of having preferential linkages to the so-called, you know, Prime sellers, right? I mean, so we know there is Amazon Prime, right? As users of Amazon Prime, we have some benefits, right? I mean, so we can again experience the consumption of those products, right? I mean, the purchases, right? In particular ways. Absent that Amazon Prime, right? We will go back to the standard Mona Lisa story, pre-1911. Just figure out which is the best product out there. There are lots, right? There are many out there. Look maybe at the ratings, right? I mean, find out, right, what are the best. And then, you know, cross your fingers that, you know, it will be shipped sometime, you know, who knows, okay? So that's why Amazon decided to have a complete different technology, market, and governance architectures. All of the three together, right? Logistics plus the marketplace plus the way of indexing the products, right? Plus, of course, the Prime, right? Preferencing. All of this in the eyes of Amazon creates a particular Amazon experience, right? I mean, the smiling face. If you take this apart, they think, right, that experience will be lost. And so we go, you know, to a standard marketplace. Now, the Italian, you know, authority thought, no, those are different markets. You have logistics, you have the marketplace, right? And then you have these products. Those are distinct markets that you operate and control. And, you know, you're doing things, you're bundling this in a way that is detrimental to some of the other players, right? That are not part of these linkages. Yes. You remember the slide? Alignment. I want to bring my partners on a particular path to value production and experience. So I'm trying to align them by providing the opportunity to join now the Amazon Prime, right? So I think that I don't have, right, I mean, the answer to that particular case. I'm just raising questions. Are we done with this model? Should we just take what we have and throw it away and just go back to neutral infrastructure, standardization? Because that's where we're going with the kind of thinking that has been pushed right now. That this needs to be like telecommunication networks, standard networks, where people can jump from, you know, one side or the other with no loss of generality precisely because they look the same. Is this the kind of things that platforms are building? I believe that, you know, if we focus on the architecture of value, the answer is that if we got this path, we might, I think, go the wrong way and focus on the wrong point. And here I stop. Thank you.